Thanks very much to your organizer and ICRER in particular for this invitation. Well, Asia, I'm afraid, is famous for its very timid adhesion to a number of international human rights instruments and the absence of an Asian Charter of Human Rights. But this picture might be a bit misleading, I think, if you look at the recent development in the area of human rights. I give you a few examples. The first example I have in mind is the very large variety of NGOs in Asia, in India, of course, but also in different countries, including China, surprisingly. I'm just giving one name, I'm sure you know of it. The Asian Human Rights Commission, very active NGO, very interesting NGO. Another example I'd like to give you, which is a famous one, is the recent Asian Human Rights Declaration. Some may find this text a bit mild, a bit somehow in contradiction with rather universal or more international principle, but this is a very important text. I can only but encourage you to read. Another few examples. Recently, you may have seen that the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, has been adopted. In this TPP, you have a number of human rights related provision, in particular in relation to labor. You have a very interesting chapter on labor issues. And this has direct implication as far as human rights are concerned for countries like Vietnam in particular. I'm thinking about unionization, about the right to go on strike, to form trade unions, etc. The last example I'm going to give you, and that's also a very recent one, has to do with this, the Constitution of Nepal. It has been debated, commented, but here again, if you look at it from a human rights perspective, it's very interesting as a number of human rights are upheld. I'm thinking about socio-economic rights in particular. So that was an introduction to It's time to bring this very interesting panel to a close. I will use my my privileged right as a chair to say a few words. Thanks very much for this distinction between values and rights. I think it's very important indeed. And what I find very interesting, is to talk again about Asian values. I thought there was no need to talk about that. That was very much a 1990s discussion. And but what's interesting to reflect upon is the political construction of these values and rights, and how some countries still use that. You think about China, for instance, the whole harmonious society, discourse, and the whole Confucian values. It's a complete political construct. They are not Chinese values as such. Of course, you had Confucius, but these are politically constructed today. Then the second remark I'd like to make about the universality in Asia. I must say I have a problem with Asia. I think you understand what I mean. There's so much diversity. Don't make me think that India and Japan or India and Malaysia share the same values. Not really. So the whole Asia construct oppose so-called Western values. Here again, I have a problem, because what are the Western? There is not much in common between France and the US, or Germany and maybe Bulgaria. So this is also things to be discussed in a very complex manner. Then a very pragmatic last remark. I've worked a lot on rights in Asia, in China, in India, in Indonesia in particular, and these human rights are very much upheld in a very pragmatic way in China, in India, by the population, by citizens who understand the value of the rights, the need of the rights. I'm thinking about, for instance, Chinese workers claiming labor rights, claiming the right to unionize. I'm thinking about Indian workers claiming it's just the same. So there is integration of international and universal human rights in Asia de facto. So this is going to be the conclusion on my side, and I'd like to warmly thank you for this very, very interesting and interactive discussion.